Hi there everyone, this is Tracy from Lavinia Stamps, and today we're going to be creating this lovely card here using some of our new stamps. We've got Oscar and our lovely pods, but I'm also using some of our older stamps, so you can see there how nicely they mix and match together. So this was created on the gel press, on our Square Lead gel press, and we've used the watercolour card as well. So I'm going to pop that to the side and we can get started. So I've picked two colours here. We've got soft signet and graphite. So I'm going to first of all ink up using the brayer and just transfer this lovely colour onto our gel press. Now you can't see the colour hardly at all actually, but I can assure you there's plenty on there. And the graphite as well. So let's grab a little bit of the graphite and we're just going to pop a little of that down as well. So you kind of just have to trust the fact that it is on there, even though you can't see it. Using a fan brush now and some water, I'm going to tap off the larger droplets and just start tapping onto the gel press. You can see the fine water droplets going on. Don't want the big droplets, just the tiny ones. Now, if you're struggling to do that, then you can always use the back of a brush and tap this way, and that ensures you get those lovely tiny dots all over. I don't know whether you can see how much water there is on there. There's quite a bit, but just tiny, tiny little droplets. This is our watercolour card here. Pop that down, and I'm going to turn it around because it's just really good fun just to squidge that on top and just watch that colour coming through. You can see all this patterning. I'm going to take that off, and that gives us a really nice subtle background. Because the tortoise, our Oscar, is a three-dimensional stamp, I want the background to be quite pale so I can colour him in. If that was a darker background, we wouldn't be able to colour him in with the watercolour pencils. So even though that's a little bit different in colour, that's okay. We can add colour as we go along. Let's dry that off. So let's take Oscar. He's our focal point. So we shall ink him up in the Nocturne. So we're going to pop him down first. So we're using the VersaFine Clair because of the detail of the stamp. The detail on this collection is really absolutely amazing. Our manufacturers have done a brilliant job. Whenever I'm designing these stamps, we're always pushing the boundaries to get that detail. So I'm so pleased with how these have come out, and you'll be able to see yourself how much detail there is in these. Remembering we're stamping onto watercolour card, so we need to just give it a little bit of time to soak in and all that lovely detail. And there we go. You can see, hopefully, all the skin all around the tortoise, all his little areas of skin all over, and his shell pattern, everything. It has just come out absolutely brilliantly. Okay, so next up, let's pop our house on top in the Nocturne, making sure that's completely covered, and then we're popping that down on the top there of Oscar, and there it is. We've got some little tiny mushrooms. We're going to ink up in the Twilight, but before that I cut Oscar out on just a little bit of thin paper, just photocopy paper. And this means that I can pop that over the top and I can stamp over without it affecting Oscar. So I'll show you what I mean now. So I've got the twilight, I've got the mushrooms. So inking those up. So if I was to stamp straight over the top, you can see it will cover Oscar. Now, because I don't want anything going over his shell, because I want to colour that in, I'm going to just place that mask over the top and then stamp. And again on this side. And there we go. Okay, so I've got nothing going on over the top of his shell there. We're also going to do that same thing using the pods as well. So let's cover Oscar again. I need to block out the bottom as well. That's one. And I'm going to pop a different size pod there. There we go. So you can see now. There we go. So what we wanted to achieve was the pods to be behind Oscar. So if I had stamped the whole thing, then the pod would have come straight through down to the bottom here, which wouldn't look right because it needs to be behind. So that's just a way of how to create depth and how it sort of looks right, I suppose. It's just by masking these areas off makes a huge difference. So now we've got the composition, we can actually start thinking about colour. And this time I'm going to use some Mondeluz pencils for a bit of colour. And then we'll add water as we go along. Getting a little bit of colour down on his shell. It's all about building colour now. And for a slightly lighter colour. We don't want to lose all that lovely detail. So this is why I'm using watercolour pencils as opposed to the Posca pencils. Posca pencils will be a little bit more opaque and it might just knock out all the detail. So the watercolour pencils, I can add the water over the top and the lines, the black lines will actually come through that, so you can still visibly see Oscar for what he is and how detailed he is. Picking a few more colours. I'm going to ground him now. So again, just working my way around his feet, grounding the pods. And I've got the black as well. A little bit more definition around his toes and under the pods there. I'm going to add a little bit of shadowing on top so it looks like the house is kind of moulded into the shell somehow and we haven't got that harsh line sitting on top. Thinking about where your shadowing is and thinking about where your light source is coming from, I'm going to add shadow at the back on this side and we're going to add the highlights on this side. Okay, now you can see just by adding these Mondeluz pencils now how it starts coming to life, how it 3Ds things, and that's all about just using shadowing and light in the right way. I'm going to add the moon now that's going to actually sit behind Oscar. So again, we need to be very careful what we're doing in the sense of where we're placing the moon and then grabbing a small stencil brush, and we've got dark denim. What I'm going to do is very carefully go around the edge. Now I don't want to go over the top of the pods because again the moon is behind the pods. So if I was to go over the top, that would then look like the moon is in front. So it's just carefully thinking and placing things in order to make it look right. So be careful not to go over his shell. You just very, very carefully working your way around the pods and Oscar, making sure that all that is in the background. Now, if you guys have got any questions, it's really difficult sometimes talking to a camera, and I'm sure that you've all got questions. So please do comment below anything that you need to know, and we will make sure that those comments get answered, because it can be very frustrating, can't it, when I'm talking to the camera and you guys are wanting to know answers to questions. So please do comment below anything that you're unsure about, and I will do my best, or my team will do my best at answering those. Okay, so you can see how I've kept the pods full and the moon hasn't gone over the top there. Now, to make the moon look a little bit more three-dimensional, I'm going to bring the shadowing in on that side again, remembering to keep to one side. You don't want to lose that line completely, but you just need to soften it. And again, these are all little tips to make your image look more real. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow now, just at the back there. Kind of brings everything to life. A little bit of a glow. I'm going to add a little bit of a glow to Oscar's shell. Okay, so now we'll add a little bit of colour to our pods now. Now, if these aren't the colours that you like, you can change this out to whatever colour is your preference. It's just the technique that I'm showing you guys. You have not got to use these colours at all. I am going to pick a little bit of a green as well. Just give a little bit of some foliage there going on amongst the mushrooms. And it's really starting to come to life now. And now we'll start to blend the watercolour pencils. Make it all look a little bit softer. Don't worry if your highlights have disappeared slightly. We'll bring those back with our pens. But the colour just comes to life, doesn't it, when you add the water, the depth of colour. Okay, let's dry that off now. I tell you what I have missed. I've missed actually grounding Oscar. I'll just do that now before I carry on. These pencils are absolutely fabulous for blending. I've tried a few different watercolours, colour pencils over the years, and it was Mona that introduced me to these. And I must say I've never looked back. She actually bought me a set, bless her. Okay, now let's dry that off. It's all about taking your time with things like this. So when we're colouring in, it's just keeping on working layer after layer after layer and building it up gradually, building your story. We've got a white Posca and we've got our stickles and our black glaze pen as well. And some yellow, and I think if we grab our pink of Stella as well. Okay, so I'm going to go in now with our black glaze pen. So just test it first, make sure that it's running fine, and then very, very carefully we're going to just darken the edges, only on the one side. This is where the shadowing is. And you don't have to do this, but I just think it adds a little bit more depth again. And then we're going to go just on the edge of the shell as well. Backs of the legs. And we're going to do the same with the pods. So just down the one side. And you can just see again how that's starting to mould the shape, making it look more three-dimensional. We can even go in actually following the patterning on the pods. Like anything, we also have to be careful not to overdo it as well. So I'm going to grab my Posca and I'm going to go around the edge of the moon. So again, if your hand's not steady, you can just dot around the edge. So you can literally just dot as well. It's just getting that contrast so that the moon stands out. So whether it's a line or dots, it doesn't really matter, but it just sharpens everything up. Now if you want the line to be a little bit whiter, we can go over for the second time if we want it to be a little bit whiter again. So now I'm bringing in the lighter colour on the pods on the other side. I'm just softening that darker line there. I just think it's a little bit harsh. We don't want to see it as a line, do we? So there we go. Starting to really come together now. Okay, so let's put the lights on. Now I'm just putting tiny little dots in the windows here because there's no way that I'm going to colour in a square, so we're just dotting. So they're tiny, tiny. Again, you don't have to do this. I'm just adding a little bit of foliage with my pen just to kind of join it all together really. Okay, so where do we go now? His feet are starting to look a little bit white actually. What I'll do, just give those a little bit of colour. I want to keep his claws white, but I can go over the top with the Posca anyway. So soften that line a little. So I'm literally just touching the very tips of his claws just to make them stand out. Let's put a tiny, tiny dot white in his eye, and that brings that to life again. And now let's pop some stickles down. Now again, we don't want to add too much of the stickles. We don't want it to become overpowering. So very lightly, I'm just touching along the edges, tiny, tiny amount. Now you can always put a blob to the side and use a paintbrush, a really tiny, fine paintbrush, if you feel that you need a little bit more control, because although the nozzle on this is fine, it's still quite thick for what we want to use it for. Got my wing Stella. Let's just add a little bit of something to the shell, give it a bit of a glisten. I think Oscar's become a favourite amongst you guys. We all love him here as well. And I've seen pictures that you've posted, you guys, of your own tortoises. And how lovely is that? I had a tortoise, well, I had a few tortoises when I was a little girl as well. But it's something I've always wanted later on in life, and maybe one day I'll get one. There's just something about them. Magical creatures. So thanks guys for sharing your pictures. I do look at them all, absolutely amazing. Okay, so I've got my Posca. I'm going to just tap a little. I never know quite how hard to smash it. You don't want it to be too big spots, but then you want more than tiny dots. I think we will stop there and let's finish there. You can see how lovely that glitter looks there and how much it just pulls it all to life. And there we have it. So two very different cards actually, but with the same theme going on. Well, I hope that you guys have enjoyed today's demonstration. Thank you so much for joining me. And you take care, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.